You know, sometimes in the biotech world, you get a real David versus Goliath story. And that's exactly what we're looking at today. It's a company called Inventiva, and get this, their entire future, everything, is riding on the results of one single drug trial.
So, the question we're all asking is pretty simple, but the stakes, they couldn't be higher. Is this small company really on the verge of a billion-dollar breakthrough for a disease that impacts millions of people? Or is this whole thing about to go sideways? And the crazy part is, we're going to find out really, really soon.
All right, so to really get why this is such a massive deal, we first have to understand the problem Inventiva is trying to tackle. And let me tell you, it's a big one.
Look at this number. We're talking about 18 million people, and that's just in the United States. 18 million people living with this specific liver disease. It's been called a silent epidemic, and for good reason. It's been flying under the radar for way too long.
So, what is this disease? It's called MASH, and it's a really serious condition. Basically, fat starts to build up in the liver, which leads to inflammation and then scarring. That scarring is called fibrosis. Now, if you don't treat it, it can get really bad. We're talking cirrhosis, liver failure, the whole 9 yards.
And here's the kicker. This disease is notoriously hard to treat. The history of drug development for MASH is like a graveyard of failed attempts, even from huge pharmaceutical companies. So you've got this massive number of patients, but almost no good treatment options. And that right there is the huge billion-dollar opportunity for any company that can finally crack the code.
And that's where Inventiva comes in. Their big bet, their shot on goal, is a drug called lanifibranor. And when I say big bet, I mean it. This isn't just one of their projects. The CEO, Andrew Obenshine, basically said it himself. They've gone all in. Think about it. They actually sold off another drug they were developing just so they could pour every last resource, every dollar, every person into getting lanifibranor across the finish line. So, okay, how does this thing even work? Well, it's what scientists call a pan-PPR agonist. I know, that sounds super technical, but here's the simple version. Imagine most drugs are like a key for one specific lock. Well, lanifibranor is more like a master key that hits 3 different targets at once, the alpha, delta, and gamma pathways. It's this 3-pronged attack that's designed to fight the inflammation, the scarring, and the metabolic issues of MASH all at the same time. And so far, the results have been really encouraging. In an earlier trial, it became the very first drug to hit what's called a composite endpoint. All that means is it did 2 critical things at once. It reduced that dangerous liver scarring, and it helped resolve the disease itself. That's a huge deal. In fact, the data was so strong that the FDA gave it both breakthrough therapy and fast-track status. That's basically the FDA saying, hey, we think this is important, let's speed things up.
But, all that early promise, all that good data, it all comes down to this, the final hurdle, a massive make-or-break phase 3 trial. They call it Native 3. And we're not talking about a small study here. The main group of patients in this trial? Over 1,000 people. 1,000 people with advanced MASH. So this is a serious, robust test to see if this drug really works when it counts.
And get this, the moment of truth is just around the corner. They finished enrolling all those patients back in April 2025, so the clock is ticking. Now everyone is just waiting, with all eyes on the 4th quarter of 2026. That's the deadline. That's when we expect to see the results.
Okay, but let's talk about the money for a second. Running a trial this big costs an absolute fortune, right? So that leads to the $1 million, or in this case, $1 billion question. Do they actually have enough cash to finish the race?
Well, it looks like they do. At the end of 2025, the company had almost 231 million euros in cash and short-term funds. That's a pretty solid financial cushion, and it's what's supposed to get them through the trial and let them plan their next steps.
And here's the most important part about that cash. It's projected to last them until the middle of the 1st quarter of 2027. So you see what that means? The results are due in the 4th quarter of 2026. They've got enough money to get past that huge milestone. And there's even a way they could get more cash through something called warrants, which would give them even more breathing room.
But of course, it's never that simple, is it? No drug story is without its risks. So let's talk about the red flags, the tough questions, the things that could still go wrong for Inventiva. Okay, first stop, side effects.
One of the big ones that analysts keep pointing to is weight gain. It's a known side effect with this type of drug. So the big question is, could that be a deal breaker?
Well, Inventiva has a pretty direct answer for that. First, they say, yep, we know it's an expected effect of how the drug works. Second, and this is crucial, they've seen that the weight gain tends to plateau, to level off over time. And probably the most important point of all, they haven't seen any signs of serious heart problems like congestive heart failure.
All right, the other big question isn't just does it work, but does it work well enough? See, in today's market, just working a little bit isn't going to cut it. It has to be effective enough to convince doctors and patients to actually use it.
And on that front, the company has pretty much drawn a line in the sand. They've said that if they can just repeat what they saw in the earlier trial, which was about an 18% improvement in that liver scarring, then they believe they'll have a really effective, really attractive drug that people will want.
So, here we are. It feels like everything is perfectly set up for a huge finale, doesn't it? The science looks good, the giant trial is done, they've got the money in the bank, and they have answers for the big risks. Everything is lined up. And it really all boils down to this one moment. Inventiva has pushed every single chip they have to the center of the table. It's the definition of a high-risk, high-reward bet, and it's all riding on the success of this one single drug. Which leaves us all with one final massive question. When that data drops in late 2026, are we going to be talking about a historic breakthrough that could change the lives of millions of people with liver disease? Or will this become a cautionary tale about a huge gamble that just didn't pay off? I guess we're all going to find out together, and pretty soon at that.